There are so many people in the world who suffer from loneliness, and the COVID pandemic has most certainly made that even worse. We want to take a look at the consequences of this as well as some of the solutions. Today's guest joins us from Edmonds, Washington. Dr. Gregg Jantz is a psychologist, best-selling author, and founder of the Center, A Place for Hope, one of the top facilities for treatment of depression in America. And one of his latest books is The Power of Connection, Maximize Your Health and Happiness with Close Relationships. So we're going to talk all about that today. Welcome to Bridge City News, Dr. Jantz. Great to have you on.
Oh, good to be with you. Yes. Hey, we all want to have positive and good relationships.
We absolutely do. So how common is the issue of isolation and loneliness in North America?
Well, in North America, what we know is pandemic and the last, let's say, 3.5 years, there's been a sense of disconnection. Oh, yes, we were in social media, we were online like more than ever before. We kind of digitized our brains because of overuse of technology. But here's what we're finding across North America. One of the things that we're finding is the report of loneliness. And most surveys show 60+% of folks report feeling more lonely. So we thought we were connected, but actually the reports are we're more lonely.
Yeah, that's incredible because, like you were saying, we were kind of in that day and age with the pandemic. Of course, came that reliance more and more and more on connecting online through Zoom and other tools, and even connecting with work, right? With work meetings. That's kind of how the world worked. But did this overdependence on social networking or technology help or actually hinder our relationships?
Well, we always want to think social media is good and helpful, but let's look, if you're already struggling with some level of depression and or anxiety, the more time we spend in social media, the more it amplifies our symptoms. Interestingly, we feel worse about ourselves. Well, what do you do on social media? Compare, you contrast yourself to others, and what happens is you end up feeling worse. Now, I'm on social media, so let me say I understand it has a good role as well, but so often it's our youth and our kids 10 to 17 seem to be the most vulnerable as it relates to social media and being so deep into it. I mean, that's their world. And what I've noticed here is that the idea of having healthy relationships, well, in some regard, if we went mostly online for our relationships, we didn't go through the normal relationship stages where you learn about trust and closeness. When you're online, it's an instant closeness or an instant intimacy, but it's really not. It's a false one. You feel like you know somebody. I
Um,
asked I have a son, and I said, okay. He goes, I have lots of friends. Okay, you have lots of friends. Have you seen any of these friends?
yeah.
Well, no, 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 but we're friends. So the definition of friend kind of got changed.
Yeah, it really does. So, I mean, like you would suggest that real connection actually means connecting with real people then in real
Yes, yes.
time.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, like, I mean, do you think that during the pandemic that maybe people got used to the habit of just connecting with others online instead of making an effort to go meet someone in person instead?
And yeah, there's a place for that, but there's also a place to sit down with somebody, look eye to eye, be able to hug, be able to, be in the same. We know there is something called on social media. There's a digital kind of exhaustion. It takes more energy to be present through a digital means over time. And what we want to do is, hey, you know what? We need one another. Let's make a point. Now, if you have somebody that's a long ways away, I understand that, but let's make a point of having real time relationships. And when you're with those relationships, keep your technology, keep your cell phone down, away from it, and have a lot of eye contact and engage in conversation. We need that. Why would over 60% say they're lonely? And here's the follow-up question that was asked, which was fascinating. Can you name a close personal friend? Okay, about half could not name a close personal friend. So that's what's happened. We have social anxiety, we've got depression, we have relationships that really are not what they could be. And we really do need each other. I said to my wife, when it boils down to it, really what we have, what do we have? We have the quality of our relationships. Let's remember that.
Yeah, 100%. Why is connection with fellow human beings so vital to our well being?
I think it's how we're wired
Yeah.
to be in relationship. I think too we need to look at okay, our greatest point of stress or hurt comes from people, and our greatest joy, our greatest closeness comes from people. And everybody, if you ask, would you like to have healthy relationship? Uh, yeah, of course. Everybody answers yes, but so often we don't know how to go about and do that. How do I have healthy relationships? And it's like we never had a class in school about having healthy relationships. So, but we need it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's absolutely. We were talking about the pandemic, of course. So, what extent did the pandemic increase our feelings of disconnectedness?
Yes, the sense of disconnect, and we had a great desire to connect. But what we know is, well, that's why there's higher loneliness. That's why really we're seeing record numbers of depression and anxiety. And there's something else that happened. There's the fear of trust. I can't be too intimate. I can't be too close with you because I'm going to be hurt. I can't trust. So we're seeing that theme of relational distrust really is a broad issue.
Yeah. And Dr. Jantz, you say in your book that the lack of strong relationships increases premature death by
Yes.
50%. So,
What we
that's
did was go, so,
incredible.
well, is there any research on relationships and what does it do to our health? And actually, I found there was. Um, and there was a couple of very interesting things. The Gottmans, who've done a lot of research on relationships, 40,000 couples, I believe. That's a lot of research. And the two words that they found that were the most important, that seemed to keep people together, irregardless, was the word. It's 8 letters. It's 2 words. The words "thank you." When we showed gratitude in our relationships, it was a bonding ingredient that kept us together. And so I think gratitude is huge in our relationships. What does it really mean to have empathy and care and compassion for another person? There's time, we all have a tough time. We all take a turn with something, and we need one another to really strengthen us through that. So the gratitude of relationships is pretty powerful. So research shows those that report having healthier or more close relationships do tend to score higher on social satisfaction. In other words, my relationship socially,
Mhm.
and fewer physical complaints. Well, that's interesting. The more healthy relationships I have, the more I have fewer aches and
Physically.
pains. So,
That's incredible.
yeah, so it is important.
Yeah. What are some of the negative effects of loneliness?
Sure. We can fall into bitterness. We can fall into resentment.
Mm,
If we've been hurt in a relationship, it's easy to kind of pull away and we keep distance from people. The more we keep distance, the more we're going to feel lonely. And the more we feel lonely, the more we can set ourselves up for depression and anxiety and social anxiety. So, isolation, there's nothing about isolation that we can find that's healthy. Now, that's different than we all need a little time to ourselves occasionally, but isolation is a pattern of living that pulls me out of relationship. I tend to be more depressed. I tend to be more anxious. And here's a third one to look at. I tend, if I'm isolated, to fall into addictive behaviors. It could be with food, misuse of prescription drugs, could be with alcohol, but that's a pattern.
Oh, 100%. Okay, now, Greg, you talk about the quality of relationships. So, what is it that makes a relationship worthwhile? What are these
Well,
qualities?
there's one thing we all think of, and that's trust. Um, Second to trust would be, can I really trust you and be vulnerable with my emotions? Can I really be truthful and say, you know, I've really been having a hard time? And you're really able to share both struggling emotions, and can I really share joy? So that's a key. The ability to trust another person with your emotions, that emotional health, where you don't feel judgment, where you don't feel corrected, where a person doesn't say, "Well, how could you possibly feel that way?" Where you don't feel attacked. So that's a key. Also, we know that it's important to have time together. Time. Okay. And that's preferably real time together.
And that's also one of the love languages as well. It's
Yeah.
time spent,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
No, I can
So
totally see that.
time spent, and that could be more important, some people less time, but you got if you're going to be in a relationship, there has to be time together. And oftentimes we want to spend it in what we call bonding activities, things that bring us together. Could be
Yeah.
as simple as a walk or some activity that brings you together.
Yeah.
We have to be careful because what's bonding or f- fun for one person may not be for the other. But you've got to have mutual bonding activities, shared experiences.
You also write about 5 keys to connection. Can you share with us some of these?
Well, one I like to talk about is the bonding activities, but a key to connection obviously it requires time, but it is somebody that we're building trust with, and trust is something that's earned over time. Online, we pretend and trust is instant. It's like, oh yeah, they're my
Yeah.
best friend, but they're really not. You don't have a relationship with them,
Did you
but
say
it feels that.
intimate? I like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it's not a real
yeah.
thing.
It's
Yeah.
not. Yeah. So we look at, okay, what are things that we really have to do? Well, sometimes we have to push ourselves. Sometimes it's go, I just rather stay home and be online or whatever.
Right.
I've got to push myself initially to engage. I've got to put myself in groups or settings where I can begin to experience people, get to know them. Here's what I truly do this. I want to meet somebody new every day. I want to meet somebody new every day in some way.
That's a good goal.
Yeah. So I'm reminded every day, one person a day. So that's my motto. And that could, yeah, because and there's great surprises. So I I'm just amazed at really how I believe God just brings people into your life, and you're amazed at who you meet.
Yeah, no, it's really true. Dr. Jantz, I've noticed over the past several years, it seems like younger people in their 20s and teens, it seems like more and more young people are suffering from anxiety and depression, and it's so sad to see. Do you think it's a social media thing? What do you think is contributing to this?
We know it contributed greatly or does. We also know that kids 10 to 17, there's a lot less physical movement, a lot less exercise. We know that addiction is dropping at younger rates. The average, it's difficult to say, but the average age to exposure to pornography on the internet is about age 9. And so there's a lot of things that are stealing our kids' minds, if you will, early on. There is such thing as a digital addiction. I've seen people who they get sweaty, their heart rate goes up, they get irritable when they can't get to their digital fix. So those kinds of things are real. We're going to see more of it in the coming days. We know that our young people are more addiction prone, they're more impulsive. We see with the advent of this whole thing of AI, artificial intelligence, and how kids are using that. Um, you know, it's changing lives for our young people. The A high schooler that can give certain parameters and have a device write a school paper. What? So there's more ways to be dishonest and that are available out there.
That's a really good point. We are out of time, but thanks so much for being with us today, Greg. So great to have you on again.
It's good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Gregg Jantz is the author of The Power of Connection, available at aplaceofhope.com.